All right, guys, just wanted to give you an update on Gunner here. July 4th weekend, 2020, decided to finally tackle a project I've been putting off for at least 2 years, actually 2 years to the day, just about. Converting this car to power windows and power door locks. She came factory, manual crank windows and no power door locks. It was just something I lived with. I just learned to live with, early on, just like all us Fox guys, when we're in our, teens into our 20s, it's, we don't care about all the creature comforts, but, it's definitely true. As you get older, you want to start having all that stuff again. So, after I got the AC done, that was probably last month, and I'm going to go over that too here. I decided to go ahead and, install the power windows. So, I'm just going to give you guys a basic overview of what I had to do. The parts I sourced from a gentleman, I think on Fox Body Addicts. He was parting out, I think in '88, matter of fact, which is the same year as Gunner here. But any Fox Body 87 and 93 will work to convert these cars. But you got to have the regulators, which is a really funny term for the actual mechanism that lifts the window up and down, with the gear and whatnot. New harnesses, window motors, and so on and so forth. I sourced all of that from one person. Of course, I changed the motors because, they were all used motors. I didn't want to go back with those. So let's go ahead and open up a door and see what we got. So the panels I probably bought about 6 months ago, and the armrests as well. They came from the same gentleman, but they didn't have switches, bezels, the actual electrical part of the switches that comes in, that plugs into the harnesses. Those didn't come, so I had to get those as well. But once the door panel came off, the original door panel, you're staring at the guts of your door, and you can see the regulator right there. It's staring at you in the face. With a manual window car, it's held in by 3 rivets. They're aluminum rivets, so they're pretty easy to remove. What you want to do is drill with a 3/16 drill bit. You want to go around the mushroom part head of the rivet about 4 times, and then take your cold chisel and start hammering around the edge of that head of the rivet, and then all of a sudden it'll start to come apart. You can push it through the hole. But before you do any of that, you definitely want to get some suction cups and connect them with some twine. They even have window holders that drape over the door frame that hold your window up in the top position. So you always want to do this with the window in the top position, or in the up position, excuse me. So anyways, held the window up, drilled the 3 rivets out. The regulator, you push it forward, the regulator comes out of the window track, comes right out. Then I was staring at the harness, the electrical harness that was in the door. I thought it was going to work, but for the manual cars, they left out the pigtail for the window motor. So I figured Ford would have just put the same harness in for every car if it was going to have power mirrors, but no, they didn't. So good thing the person that I bought, the conversion kit from, had the door harnesses for power windows. So had to replace the harness. The harness came out from the door. I had to pull it through the dash and whatnot, but it comes out really easily. Installing the new harness is exactly reverse. You fish it through the door, your boot will go through and mate up at the car, and then pull your wires through, and then you connect it into the crossover harness pigtail, which is right up under the dash by your blower motor. So while I was in there, I went ahead and replaced the speaker. Well, actually there was no speaker in the whole stock, so I put kicker 6.5-inch speakers in. The depth is pretty critical here, guys. If you want to replace your door speakers on a Fox body, the depth of the speaker from the back of the mounting flange can only be, I think it's 2 1/16 deep. If it's any deeper than that, your window's going to hit the magnet. So all your speaker manufacturers, well, I say all of them, I know Kicker does, look at the specs. You want to get a 6.5 that has anything less than a 2 1/16 depth, which I think this one was 1 15/16 or 1 3/4, so it fit perfectly. Yeah, new switches, bezel plate, switch connectors. I went to LMR also and put a new pad and silver stripe with the staples. So I rebuilt the armrests, new plugs. So everything works well. I don't have the key in it, but so I'm not going to roll the windows down, but I'll show you the door locks. So that's that. All the creature comforts now. Straight out of the 80s. Hope you guys liked it. Alright, so now I'm going to go over the AC, or, you know, at least a little bit of it. I got the hood popped. Let me go ahead and open it up for you guys. So she looks a little different from last time. AC compressor. Relocated alternator. Some new pulleys, crank, water pump, and alternator pulleys. Stock Ford Motorcraft alternator pulley. So what I did here, guys, obviously it's a 414 cubic inch Windsor, so standard 9.5 inch tall deck height. Windsor motor, 60 over 408 is what this is. Ford Racing has the AC compressor / power steering bracket for a 351 and a Fox. That's what this is. These things are about $100, $120. They came stock on some of the Crown Vics, I think, from the 80s, some of the police cars. But yeah, I couldn't find any used, so I just went ahead and got this one. They come black. I went ahead and painted it silver just to make it match a little better. Had to source the bolts. I think LMR has an ARP kit. That's what I ended up buying. I bought the ARP bolt kit, stud. You reuse your factory power steering bracket. So it mounts up just like a stock 5-liter, you know, with an 8.2 deck height, same bracketry and everything. Compressor, back bracket, the footer bracket, all that stuff is the same. The only thing that changes is your main bracket right here. The compressor I got online from a vendor, I think out of Michigan, but it's a factory rebuilt, refurbished compressor. So it's the original Ford style with all brand new bearings, all Ford and Timken stuff. Very, very good quality. I didn't want to go with any kind of aftermarket compressor and whatnot. Obviously all brand new lines. The discharge line, the condenser obviously is new. The liquid line with the orifice tube, the dryer, the return line, your liquid line going back to the compressor low side. So yeah, so everything works really, really well. Guys, one thing to note, very, very important. For you guys that want to retrofit your cars, but you want to use stock style equipment like this, like a stock compressor, and let's say you want to keep your core in the dash, you haven't replaced that. One thing that's very important to note is obviously you can't source R12 anymore. Well, most of us can't. And you want to go with R134A, which is most likely what you're going to use. These cars in the 80s came with R12 refrigerant, all right? So we all know that. But here's where the kicker is. The oil that was used to lubricate the system was a mineral oil, okay? So when, I think in 95 or 96, when they converted to 134A Freon, mineral oil was also discontinued, you know, for stock purposes, and R134A was used in conjunction with PAG style oil, and they have different weights, PAG 46, so on and so forth. I think they go up into the hundreds for the viscosity. All right, you cannot mix mineral oil from an R12 system with PAG oil from a 134A system. So there is an oil that is compatible with both, and that's what you want to use. It's called ester oil. and it's short for polyester. But anyways, because I was using my stock core in the dash, there was no telling how much of the early mineral oil was still in that core. And what happens is, the reason why you cannot mix the two together, they will turn to glue and they will lock your compressor up. So that's why I had to use ester oil. So when I put this whole system together, it's all stock parts, or stock style parts, stock replacement parts. About 8 to 10 ounces of oil is what you want to use to fill this whole system up. You want to put about 4 ounces in the compressor. You want to put an ounce in the condenser, another ounce in each one of the lines, the dryer, and that adds up to 8 to 10 ounces of oil. But again, it's got to be ester oil if you're going to do something like this. And then get your pure R134A Freon and charge it up. And do it the proper way, guys. Harbor Freight has a vacuum pump for, I think, like $100 or so, or you can rent them at the parts stores. But once you get everything installed, you're going to want to, obviously you have to retrofit your nipples to 134 so you can hook up your gauges. But you can rent a set of gauges, you can buy them, you can rent or buy the tools. I just went ahead and bought them just because I'll probably need them again. But you want to pull a vacuum, and that's going to, the purpose of pulling a vacuum on your AC system is to remove any moisture that's in the system, any kind of humidity or whatnot. Moisture and humidity, if it's in a sealed system with Freon, will destroy it. So you want to pull a vacuum on the system for about 45 minutes to an hour. Hook up your lines, run your vacuum pump, open your valves, watch your gauges. And what's happening when you're at 30 inches of vacuum is whatever moisture is in the system is getting so hot it's actually evaporating. It's boiling, it's evaporating, turning into steam, getting sucked out of the vacuum pump. That's what you want. And it also verifies that you don't have any leaks in the system. So after an hour with your valves closed, you want to come back and see if your gauges are still where they were when the pump was on. If they are, that means your system's sealed. You're good to go. And there's plenty of there's plenty of videos on how to charge these systems once you get it, once you pull a vacuum on them. But 134A and R12 have different specific gravity weights. So, for instance, a factory R12 Fox body, I think holds 40 ounces of R12 Freon. You do not want to put 40 ounces of 134A in the system. You're actually going to use 75 to 80% capacity of what the R12 system is. So if you do the math, you're looking at around 32 ounces of 134A Freon to fill up the system. And that's a ballpark, guys. You really, as you're filling these things up, you're going to want to watch your gauges, and you want to monitor the ambient temperature outside. Go online, Google it up. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. Look up your R134A pressures chart. You want to start looking at your pressures for the ambient temp that you're charging at. So, for example, with Gunner, I think it was probably around 90 degrees the day that I was charging her up. So I looked at the chart. It said I needed to have around 45 PSI on the low side as she was running, and no more than 270 PSI on the output high side. So all in all, everything went perfect. It took 2.5 cans, 2.5 12-ounce cans, which is pretty much right at 30 ounces, which is exactly around the 80% range, conversion from 12 to 134A. So, and she blows ice cold. So, but yeah, guys, plenty of write-ups and YouTube videos out there and whatnot. But the biggest thing, if you're going to tackle a project like this, putting stock style AC back on a Fox body that had R12 in it, I can't stress it enough. Use ester oil, E-S-T-E-R. Do not go back with PAG. Do not go back with mineral, because the mineral oil will not work with the 134A Freon. So the ester oil is compatible with everything. So, but yeah, so this is it, guys. Just wanted to show you the update on the AC. So this is also why I decided to go with the power windows, power door locks, because once the AC was up and running, doing the reach around over here to crank the window back up, you know, especially if you're driving by yourself. It's not fun. So but yeah, guys, thanks for watching. And one last thing I'll mention, Speed Doctor, you can find him online, Facebook. Guy makes awesome brackets. I got this bracket probably a year or two ago, knowing that eventually I was going to put AC back on this car, and I had to kind of get in my head the belt routing of what needed to be situated to get this kind of setup. So his bracket worked the best. This is obviously a 351 car, so definitely look him up. He makes awesome products. I mean, the quality of his bracket, everything fit perfectly, as you can tell. But you know, the depth, the height, everything just lined up. It just worked, and you know, they're not that bad, comparable to a March bracket or whatever. But it basically lowers your alternator, you know, so you can get the routing right, or if you just want it lower to begin with. But Speed Doctor Racing Components, I think is what it is. Made in USA. Everything's made in USA. Very high quality. So, but yeah, look them up. And thanks for watching.